Hey everyone, and welcome to the Creative Financing Podcast. I'm Nicole Kamanjian. I'm here with Cody Richard and the host of this show, Jeff Rappaport. This is episode 231, and today we're going to go over a deal that Cody has, and Jeff is going to give him some feedback. While listening to this episode, if you guys have questions, please head over to the Creative Financing Podcast Facebook group. If you're not part of the community, just search the Creative Financing Podcast in Facebook and ask to join. There will be a live session on the second Thursday of every month, so bring your questions. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can ask your questions in the comments below. Lastly, we want to thank you for subscribing, liking, and sharing this podcast with your friends.
Take it away, Cody.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. So I'll go ahead and share my screen for the video listeners, and we'll go through the numbers for all the audio listeners as well. But I came across a seller in Missouri. He's open to owner financing, to sell the property and move on from it. It was a rental property, not rented at the moment though, so we need to put somebody in there. But from everything that I've seen, this seems like a deal. So I wanted to talk through the offers I put together and get some feedback.
Can we set up what the deal was before we go through your offers?
Yeah, of course. So it is a single family house.
Okay.
It's a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom. Built in 1996 and just under 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
And I saw 3 comps in the area that sold a few months back for about 270,000. So that's what I put the ARV as.
Okay.
And as far as repairs goes, it just needs minimal. Since it was a rental, it just needs some cosmetic updates, so paint, carpet. So it's just very minor stuff like that. Roof's fine, windows are fine, all the big ticket items.
What would you estimate the repairs at?
So I estimated it at about 25,000.
Okay. And what would it rent for?
So on the high end in the area, it'd rent for 1,800. On the low end, 1,400. But I estimated near the middle, about that 1,750 range.
Okay. 1,700. Okay. And what does he owe on the property?
So let me pull that up. He doesn't owe much. I do know that. I don't know the exact amount on it. So I know his payment is below this 808 that you see offered here, but I can pull that up real quick.
Okay.
And while I'm doing that, the seller, he is definitely motivated to sell, and his asking price was only actually 160. So he, was open to different offers, wasn't asking too much for the property, and was ready to.
What's the situation, Cody? Well, why does he want to sell, and why is he discounting it so much?
Yeah, so he is honestly just a tired landlord. He wants to downsize his portfolio while the market's up, and now is a good time to do it, to get a lot of that off his plate.
Okay.
And he is able to move into his dad's house. So I actually, looking back on it, I misspoke. So it was somewhere he was living.
Okay.
And so he's moving into his dad's house. He doesn't need this property anymore.
And doesn't want to rent it.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
As far as what's owed on it, it's actually free and clear.
Okay.
So my memory of this property is getting refreshed. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So change the all-inclusive to trustee to note.
True. So
Okay.
just trustee to note.
Do you have any idea what the taxes run on this property?
Yes, I do. So the taxes right now are $218 per month, so about $2,600 per year.
Okay.
And then for the insurance, I estimated about $150 a month, just my rough estimate.
And you know this market better than I do, because that seems super high for this price range of a house, but it varies depending on what market you're in. So, and in this case, you might as well estimate high because it looks like you've got quite a bit of room.
Yeah, and that's what I usually like to do, is estimate, not necessarily worst case scenario, but to make sure if I am wrong, I'm wrong on the high end.
Yeah. Okay.
To give myself some room. And then I estimate about $170 a month for repairs and maintenance.
Okay. So he was asking 160.
Yep.
And is open to terms, and it's free and clear.
Correct.
Okay, let's see what you got.
Yeah, so I came up with 3 different offers. I'll start at the bottom, which is my cash offer.
Okay.
So I started with that one as the lowest. So being that the ARV was 270, looking at the market and everything, I came in quite a bit below where he wanted to be. So it was $120,050 is the cash offer. And I was just running it through a typical calculation, no closing costs, no commission, buying it as is. So knowing that this was below, but I still wanted to at least put the offer out there because 160 to 120 is not as far as you might think for some people.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I also decided to put together a short-term financing offer.
Okay.
So with this one, purchase price of $130,000 to $130,110, coming with $5,100 down, which is pretty low, but I wanted it to be lower than my long-term offer.
Okay.
Monthly payment of $527, principal and interest rate at 3%, term for 8 months, and then a balloon payment after that.
So you're basically, well, what is it? About 125 that he'd be financing.
Yep.
3% over 30 years. So 527, super low payment. Okay. And
Yeah.
how long are you doing this for? 8 months. Okay.
Just 8 months, yeah.
Okay. And then you have a 123 balloon payment. Okay. And
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question. So the 8 months, is that just to give you enough time to like rehab it and then wholesale it, or?
Yeah, so for me, the cash offer and this offer, I would more likely be to wholesale it. I think wholesale is a great option for something like this, just with how much of a margin it has and being that it's not in poor condition. There is room to make those minor cosmetic repairs and then get it listed. So my exit strategy on these two was either wholesale or wholesale. And the 8
Okay.
months, yeah, would be plenty of time. And that's just on the maximum that we would take.
Okay. So basically, you would be cashing this out as a rehab, basically. Or
Yeah.
because even if you sold this to a landlord, they would want longer than 8 months to be able to burr this.
Yep.
And we all know what that means, right? That we're able to refinance the property at 80% of the real value, which will now be hopefully around 270, and be able to pull back all your money, any repairs, any purchase money. So now you're into this with no money down, right? Okay, so there's about a $10,000 difference between the two, and one of the things that I would point out to you, Cody, is that usually on my short-term finance deals, I would make the payments start 30 days after. And actually I've started to, when I ask for like some free months, which I would absolutely do on your next option, that the only reason I don't with this is that it's going to be short term, and for you to skip another month is so
25% of it.
well, and you really should be. So when you're saying 8 months, that you have 2 of no payments, so it really should be showing like 10 months total term with 2 months of no payment, right?
That would make sense, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and for those that are just listening, I have in my letter of intent that payments to begin 60 days after closing, and should reduce that down to 30 for the short-term owner finance.
At least that's what I tend to do. I mean, you can do it any way you like. 3 months or 3 months, but and it just make sure that if you're going to extend it, make sure you extend your term. 30 days is normal, right? When you, after closing, that your payment is due in 30 days. But to do it 60 days is, now there's an extra month.
That makes sense.
Okay. All right, let's see option one.
Option one. So this is the one that the owner is interested in. So the other two were 40,000 and 30,000 below his asking price respectively. This one is quite a change from that.
Okay.
So it's longer term owner financing, trustee note, purchase price of $190,200, down payment $10,200, so under 10%, closer to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
Monthly payment of $808.28, and that's just principal and interest. So we're paying the taxes on top of that. Interest rate 3.5%, and then the term on this one would be 180 months or 15 years. And then after the 15 years, there would be a balloon payment of $113,064. And then also include that we pay the taxes and insurance on this.
Yep.
We're responsible for maintenance and repairs. Then over the 15 years, he would gross about $268,000, which would be net if he doesn't have a mortgage.
Right. It would be net. And which is significant. That's over $100,000 more than what he was asking for.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I have talked with him. He's very interested in this. Just have to get get it finalized and get it signed. So he's accepted it. He's ready to move forward. And that was a big point for him, is that over that time, he's making, like you said, 100,000 over what he was asking for it. And up front, it's 30,000 over the asking price.
Right. Correct. So tell me, what's the exit strategy for you if he was to take this?
Yeah. So this one is something I haven't done before. In the past, I've just wholesaled, but this one is something I definitely want to stay in the middle on. So I'd want to assign it to either an owner occupant or another individual investor, just on different terms.
So you don't want to assign it if you're going to stay in the middle, because that would take you out of the middle. So you would actually buy it and then resell it.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is what I would want to do.
Okay. And just very ballpark numbers. What would you do to this house? Would you do any of the repairs? Would you sell it as is? What kind of price do you think you would sell it for? How much down payment do you think you would get? What would you charge interest wise?
So for me, the most sense was to sell it to an owner occupant.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is mark it up, and you may be able to do more, but this was my initial thought, was mark it up by 15 to 20,000 on the purchase price and down payment. So still far below what that ARV is, because I don't want that down payment to be too significant. And then I would mark up the monthly payment to closer to that 1,700.
So wait, so you would sell this for like 205?
That was my initial thought. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, way too cheap. Way too cheap.
All right, where do you think it would make more sense where the down payment wouldn't be too high? Because that was my biggest concern.
Why?
With raising it.
But what are you concerned about?
Not being able to find someone that could afford that down payment at this price point.
How comfortable are you in the value?
I feel pretty comfortable. I mean, it may be slightly lower with the market changing, but the comps are very close by.
Okay. And what the repair costs, are they mostly cosmetic?
Yeah. If you were to rent the property out, you can move a renter in there without doing anything. So
I'd sell this probably for 260 to 270.
Oh wow. Okay.
And yeah, I would try to get $25,000 to $30,000 down.
Oh, I see.
And now let's say that you do it for 260, okay? Because you're concerned about the market. By the way, much easier to start a little high for a week or so and see what kind of interest there is, and then it's not a big deal to just go drop the price a little bit. So 260, and let's just keep these numbers kind of round, right? So it's just easy to understand. So let's say you get 30 grand down. Okay, so you're financing your end buyer for 230,000. Does that make sense?
Okay, I'm with you.
Okay. And you said that rent would be about 1,700.
Yep.
$1,700 a month, kind of conservatively, right?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do like what Nick and Eric, our last two guests, were on, and structure two notes, you may want to come down a little bit on the price, just because at 8% on 230, we're looking at 1687 a month in payment. Now remember, that doesn't include their taxes and insurance. So I still think we're fine.
Yeah.
I think we're certainly right in the range, but you don't have any underlying debt, right? There's no due on sale clause. The only real reason that you would want to sell off a note is, hey, you needed some cash. And so you could do it. You could try to structure it in the way that Nick showed us a few episodes ago, or just you find your buyer. So if you just did this at 8%, which is really fair, right?
Yeah.
You'd be bringing in 1687 minus your 808. You'd be making $879 a month passive income.
Nice.
Yeah, right.
It's good to me.
On a property that you don't own and don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
You'd have about, well, let's call it $15,000 profit up front. You're gonna have a couple sets of closing costs, parts of closing costs, and this is without going and doing any work, right? So
yeah,
and you may find that this is all based on what the seller's telling you, right? Have you seen pictures or anything? I mean, ultimately, what I like to do is, if I'm going to buy this, I'm going to go schedule an inspection. So I can, I'll spend $350 or whatever it's going to be. I don't need a homeowner inspection, but I need, hey, check all the major, the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, the anything major, and then point out to me anything else that you see. And so even if you had to mark this down a little bit so you don't have to go do the work, it would still make sense. And really what you would do is just raise the interest.
Yeah.
So even if you marked it down to 245, it's a deal. If it really needs 25 grand in work, you don't normally have to mark it down that much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So you'd make 15 grand up front. You'd make $879 a month for, he's going to give you 15 years, right?
Correct.
So really the only issue becomes is, hey, what happens after 15 years? Scroll down just a little bit, Cody. What's the balloon to him? It's 113,000.
Yep.
So what could you do here? I mean, first of all, chances are whoever you sell it to is going to sell it or refinance it before 15 years. But what worst case scenario, let's say that you had to work something out. If you've got a 15-year term, and that's why it would be great to structure it where with the two notes, because hey, if the person's still in it for 15 years and you had to pay that off, you could, right? But to be honest, you'll have a bunch of equity, even though you might not be at where we want it to be interest rate wise, which would be like 9.5 or 9.75. You'd have so much equity and such a track record, it's not going to matter tremendously. Okay. But what if you're financing 230 at 8% for 30 years, right? That's 1687. And at the balloon 180, that they will owe you $176,597 minus that 113.
Gotcha. So that would be at the end what it would be.
Like another 63,000. Yeah, approximately.
Yeah.
And then the 875 times 180 would be $157,500. So yeah, this deal only has a little over $200,000+ in it for you.
Yeah.
Would this be the best deal you've ever done?
It would be, yes.
Yeah. It's a good one. And I would have told you initially, I think you offered too much. I'm with you. Personally, me, and there's not a right or wrong answer here, right? That for me on this one, I probably would have made either the cash offer or the short-term finance offer, and I probably would have made two offers long-term. I might have made a subordination offer, with $30,000 down, and maybe even maybe that one would have been the 185-ish range, and maybe this one would have been more like a hybrid interest rate, like a 2.5 or even 3%, which won't change things a whole lot. But does it even matter? I mean, you just saw potential profit for yourself. Does it matter? Does it matter that you're overpaying by like 30 grand?
No.
And when I say overpaying, what he's asking, right?
Yeah.
So get this done. Whatever you got to do, go get it done.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think, Nicole?
This is pretty awesome. I mean, 875, and you don't have to worry about the tenants or anything. That's a great return right there.
Yeah. How much money do you need to do this?
Nothing.
You might have to come up with that 10 grand for a few weeks. Could you borrow that?
Yeah, if you needed to.
Yeah. And within 30 days, I would guess, one way or the other, right? I mean, you have a lot of room here. It's, a lot of times when I'm doing these kinds of deals, I don't want to close. I want to be sure I can find my buyer. On this one, I'm like, you close.
Yeah.
You don't wait. You close. And we could go into a whole bunch of other things, but I think the gist of it is that, hey, someone was willing to sell you this deal at a good price to begin with. And now you're able to pay him more than what he's asking. And it will work out just fine for you.
For sure. And I will say this one, I mean, obviously not all deals are like this, but this one was found just by asking him questions. Like on the down or the purchase price, being able to talk through that and see what he needs. And I mean, being able to figure out what his motivation is. He doesn't need the house. He's moving into his dad's house, just wants to get it off his hands.
What did he say about the down payment or the term?
He said, I don't need money up front. I don't need a lot of money up front.
No,
because I'm moving in there. It's not like I'm using it to buy anything. So that's why he was open to a low down payment.
Yep.
For the term, I told him we sometimes go as long as 30 years. How long would you be comfortable going on for?
Yeah.
I could probably do 10 to 15 years.
Yep.
So,
and I'd probably follow that phrase up with, keep in mind that the longer you go, the more money you make on this house.
True. Yeah.
And he's seeing it, right? I mean, and I love that you pointed out how much he will net, because most people won't, and they just don't understand. And now when he sees that number, he's like, oh, wow. Good to be the bank.
Yeah. And I just talked to him today and I was telling him, yeah, these monthly payments, there's a lot of interest on them. So I'm not paying down the mortgage too quickly. A lot of that's just interest coming into your pocket.
Yep. No, I love it. Awesome deal. Get it wrapped up.
Yeah, thank you for talking through it. Definitely helps me out as well.
Sure. Nicole, do you have any other questions?
Nope. Congrats, Cody. That's awesome.
Yeah.
No congrats until it's closed.
Never done until it's done.
Yep. I appreciate it though.
Well, and hopefully all you guys were able to follow along. If not, then get to YouTube and watch this, because this is a real deal that they're out there. And we're going to see more of them with the market shifting. So till next time, go create some terms.